pressing the live button. I love that.
All right, and welcome everybody to System.Debug level 63. We will be we have Megan, RJ, and Adam today, and we are going to be talking about reInvent and RJ's lovely time at the conference. And then we are also going to be talking about Lightning Web Components and JavaScript, focused around some of the best practices and some of the things that developers have been doing and should be doing for 2020. So to get started, RJ, why don't you tell us about your conference and what's going on and what everything was like?
Boy. So it was a lot of fun. I didn't have a lot of time to get swag, so I got the $1,600 hoodie, the famous $1,600 hoodie.
So wait, tell me more about this hoodie.
Yeah, so, that's news.
So the conference pass is like $1,700. So everyone calls it the $1,600 hoodie because that's like the first thing you get. You go into this conference, you walk in, you get this hoodie. This year they also had a water bottle. And I also got this from the certification lounge. I got this guy, AWS certified, plenty of water bottles, plenty of socks. And that's all a reInvent. All right.
Dude, that is amazing. Did you get certified while you were there?
I got the baby one. So one of my buddies, Jeremy Lizzo, was like, "Hey, while we're here, I want to go get the what is it? The cloud practitioner, which is like the very base level. Like I just know it's like a 10,000 foot overview certification. So it's just kind of like, oh, I know the ins and outs of AWS, but I don't know any specific service too deeply. It's more of a breadth than a depth kind of certification." So he was like, "Yeah, we should go get that one." And I was like, "Okay, I'll go do it." So I threw down $100 and I just went and took it. Like 15 minutes later, I came out and I had it. But that's like, well, it's not even like, yeah, I already have plenty of other ones. So it's very quick. It's like, imagine you had, I don't even know all the certs for Salesforce, but imagine you had like a very high level one, like an architect, and then you somehow took a baby one. You know, you took like it's like taking the architect exam and then taking a trailhead, and you're like, ha ha ha, this is cute and funny. Yeah. So, okay, so jokes aside, and joke certifications aside, the whole thing was great. It was pretty much 5 days, just jam-packed with sessions. They launched, 77 different new products and feature releases and services. So all that stuff, 77 of those. 6 were in the analytics space, 16 were in the compute space, 20 were in the machine learning space. There were 3 in storage, 3 in security, identity, and compliance, 5 things in the AWS Partner Network, 4 things in database, and 5 things in network and content delivery. So lots of stuff. Yeah. One of the things, if I could, for just a moment, plug, AWS and Slalom are like super premier, like best friend partners, like the ultimate level of best friendship that you can possibly get to. And we're launching AWS Slalom sites where you can come and kind of get your stuff. I already forgot the name because I'm dumb. But yeah, we're launching we're launching AWS Slalom partner sites where you can come in and get your stuff kind of checked out. You can come in and say, "Hey, I really want to try to do this one thing. I want to try to move my website to something more cost effective. I want to try to move my stuff and be more cloud native. I want to be cloud agnostic. I want to," basically you come there and you say, "Look, I need help with my business, and I want you all to help me out." And we have Slalom people staff there, and we have AWS people staff there as well, who will help you through that whole entire process. Anyway, moving right along, tons of awesome stuff there, sessions galore, so much new stuff. I can't even fit it all in my head. And so if you weren't there, go to the reInvent website, go check out some of the things. There's tons of new stuff, new content for people to just like gorge themselves on. So I would suggest jumping out and doing that and going nuts.
All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
Where was reInvent?
Oh, sorry. Should have said that first, right? It was in Vegas. So beautiful, beautiful, sunny Las Vegas for the very first week of December.
Awesome. Very cool.
And it was good?
I had a blast. I learned so much stuff. My head feels like it's going to crack wide open.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Breaking,
I mean,
breaking
that was kind of I know we already did the Dreamforce chat, so we're not going to do that again. But it kind of similar, right? Like there's just so much stuff that you're still kind of unpacking, which kind of segues into what we're talking about for the other half, right? Which is like everything else that they introduced around Lightning Web Components, as well as like the huge focus that they have on JavaScript.
Nice.
So to kind of jump into that, when I was at North Africa Dreamin', I spent some time talking to some of the dev evangelists from Salesforce, and was talking about some particular items that I've run into about having Salesforce developers, and those who have their background is strictly in Salesforce development and trying to switch over to the concept of LWC. And just what does that mean? And a lot of the questions come up, are, well, what type of JavaScript framework should I learn? What should I be using? And it's pushing, more of, no, you need to learn, LWC. And, it's one of those where Salesforce, had opened up the concept of Lightning to so many more developers with LWC. Just with the fact that it does relate so much more to JavaScript and makes it so much easier to learn if you have that background. If you're coming from the Salesforce background, for developers like myself that aren't a JavaScript developer, it's a little bit more confusing to try to pick up and a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is going on that LWC side?
Well, I think you're right. For people who've been developing, and like, I think we've talked about this before, but like, I've been developing on the platform since Visualforce came out, right? And for a while, I mean, maybe not initially as people are getting used to it, but just prior to Visualforce, it was all S controls, right, which were JavaScript. And then in Visualforce, people were posting their JavaScript on top of Visualforce, like inside pages. So you'd have people either with like inline JavaScript, like in-page JavaScript sections, or they'd be importing static resources with JavaScript. And eventually we got to a point where people were creating essentially SPAs in their favorite framework, Angular, Vue, or React, or whatever, inside a Visualforce page on top of Salesforce. And that was fine to a degree, although everybody would do it slightly differently. There wasn't really a Salesforce mandated best practice because the technology wasn't theirs. Even though, at some point, everybody started to kind of coalesce or kind of agree to certain patterns that everybody was kind of using, there was no guarantee that everything would continue to work that way. At the same time, they were doing a bunch of stuff in the back end, trying to improve a bunch of like the whole Lightning experience mandate, where they're like upgrading all their back end services to try to improve speed. We saw a lot of improvements, and then they had everybody moving into Aura. Except Aura was yet another framework in like, yes, it was JavaScript, but JavaScript in a very specific niche way, and it was all proprietary tech again. And there was essentially running into the same problems that they'd had with Visualforce, right? Where people had to learn yet another language or yet another conceit or framework in order to properly work. So
what
I think
about
that
the impacts of security as well? I know, specifically with some of the JavaScript that was done on projects I was in when Locker Service was rolled out, there were some issues that came into play.
Yeah, I mean, Locker Service is still there, right? Locker Service still exists. And I think Locker Service is the right way to go, because you in this like Visualforce with an SPA on top, there was a lot of like security concerns, right? Not just because people are using a whole bunch of libraries that Salesforce doesn't control and all of a sudden need to like still be able to guarantee security on top of their platform. So Locker Service was, on the other hand, like a big swing of the pendulum in the other direction. So a lot of people like all of a sudden had to learn like a whole bunch of new conceits. They couldn't do stuff there the way that they were used to doing it. And in some instances, the ways to access data weren't quite there yet. So if you had to use locker service, all of a sudden you couldn't really do things the way that you needed to do. So there was a whole new conceptualization and architecture that you needed to come up with in order to, on top of having to learn a new framework. LWC, on the other hand, is a little bit more standardized, right? I mean, it's using the standard like web component specification, right? Which is like W3C confirmed. It's supported in all browsers. You can build this stuff on/off platform. It's just HTML, CSS, JavaScript in a pretty straightforward way. I mean, you're leveraging standard HTML templates. You're interacting with, you know, Shadow DOM to a degree that a lot of people who are currently developing like React, Vue, and Angular are going to be comfortable with. They're able to copy a lot of those patterns. But to your point, Megan, like if you were a Visualforce developer or you then swapped from Visualforce to Aura, it is, and you weren't doing like, you know, React or Vue or Angular, it is a big adjustment, right? There's a lot of having to now learn what the rest of the web is doing in some way in order to move, in order to come over and start to interact with things. And I think that is an adjustment, but it's an investment in one, your skill set, and two, in the overall security of the platform, and three, like definitely it's a performance increase or improvement, I think.
Well, there's also the fact that, you know, LWC doesn't quite have all of the functionality that Aura had yet. So you have to build components that are Aura and LWC for the time being.
I don't think you have to build components that are both, but you can continue to use Aura components that in your like overall application, right? Like it's still supported to the like up to now. But anything new that you're building, you should build in LWC.
So I thought the recommendation was to do as much as you can in LWC, and where the line comes, you know, to do that other part in Aura. So to have components within components.
I don't know that I would recommend that, just because it sounds like a whole lot of work. Maybe just think about building your application slightly differently. Like
a lot of people,
because some functionality just is 100% not available. Things like you cannot do. Correct. Yeah. So for the time being, how are you compensating for that?
I was going to say, are there a lot of companies out there that are doing like, so they're building, and forgive my absolute ignorance of this. I know what LWC is, but I've never really like played with it. Are there a series of companies who would like, let's say, and this happens in like outside of Salesforce as well, where they're like, okay, take this one little piece where you can be effective in this new thing and build this stuff over here, but also keep this little guy over here because it still has all these nice little features that we like and love and can't live without. So is that what you're talking about, Megan, where you're building, you're almost building two components, one future looking and one to say, okay, here's still my stable piece, my piece that everyone else loves. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
So what I've seen is that people are building components to work together. As in they are actually building an Aura component that is that contains an LWC component.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I mean, so it's like
you can build
and that's the recommendation on developer.salesforce.com as well.
You can build a Lightning Aura, like a Lightning app, right? That has both LWC components and Aura components. But like containerizing all, and if you, let's say, for example, you've got an LWC that's your overall like structure container, you can put Aura components in it, sure. But it's not like you're creating an LWC component that all it's going to do or is just wrap around an Aura component and it doesn't interact with anything else. Right? Like the whole container structure needs to exist anywhere.
So you're not creating wrappers for the sake of creating a wrapper and maintaining this old functionality that everybody needs. You're creating a whole component because component A, which is LWC, has this feature that I like and it's more future looking. whereas component B is my aura, and it has all these features that I can't live without, but it's not really future look. We're not looking into the future here. We're kind of holding on to the past at this point, right? And
so it's more so because
stack
it's
them
just
side by
not
side.
there. It's more so that it's just not there yet. So you have to use the aura.
It's mostly
still.
edge cases for these like aura components, and they're decreasing over time.
Well,
right,
good.
like every release is introducing new functionality that LWC supports.
I mean, some of them are pretty big deals. Things like actions.
And actions were dumb in the first place.
Dude, they are huge.
Fight.
Huge. They are far from done. They are an everyday use case that I think is extremely important.
Well, I mean,
but you can
think of it like, sorry, go ahead.
You can make an aura component for your action, and then LWC component for the functionality, and call the aura component and drop the LWC component in it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Like,
because that is the best practice that seems to be recommended out there.
I mean, I think just because I don't know how long actions are going to live.
I think they're the way it's going. Like, that's where Salesforce is headed, is actions.
I mean, if an action is like just calling like or like submitting a message to an overall service, then we're going to get there pretty fast, right? Like with Lightning Message Service coming, like Lightning Message Service in spring is going beta, right? It's moving out of developer preview.
So like actions as in object-specific actions and global actions, flow actions, calling a component from that button, all those types of actions. Yeah,
I think that like those types of actions, my feeling is that we're probably going to see that functionality replaced once the underlying tech to support them has been improved, and we're going to get there. So
what would you see replace that though?
I mean, I think we're going to see like a type of framework like actions, if not actions itself, that the underpinnings are the LMS. And I mean, Lightning Messaging Service, not Learning Management System. And with LMS going beta in spring, they can then start to build that. But it's building the pieces in order to build the stuff on top of it. It's setting up those foundations. That's my opinion.
I just can't see actions going away for an extremely long time. They're too foundational for pretty much every build.
When I say that I think actions are kind of dumb, I just mean the way that they're currently implemented. Because like the way that the data has to get transferred, the way that everything gets supported, and like the loops it has to go through and the hoops it has to go through. I mean, it's kind of kludgy at best, which is why I don't think we're seeing it yet, because the tech needs to update in order to make that happen.
I wish I knew more about actions.
I find them extremely useful, extremely useful.
Is this like an event system within?
See, exactly. Like,
is that what it is?
Well, it's sort of like a homegrown event system that's not really using like a messaging service in the way that, because there's a bunch of different types and subtypes that all interact slightly differently.
Okay.
And so like there's a need to standardize the underlying like messaging tech, and like we've seen like additional like tech acquisitions like with MuleSoft and stuff like that, where like moving towards a more standardized DSP and pipeline makes a lot of sense. So I think that we're probably going to see all of those like types of actions eventually being transmitted the same way, and we can do that through like more standard messaging. That's my gut feeling.
This is the Lightning management system that you're talking about. Is that newer, more standard? Lightning messaging system that you're talking about. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and all the Lightning messaging system is like, instead of like a more like a standard kind of pub sub right now, they have like built-in like channels that they can like control more permissioning for. So, and then you can like generate and provision and send out. But essentially, it just creates. It's kind of like. If you were to look at like kind of like a channel subscription as opposed to like pub sub or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's cool. That's good to know, and especially if it's going to go that way. So then Megan's not going to lose her actions. She's just going to get better actions, right?
That's the hope.
So foundationally, the way that they work and the way that they're used across the platform, it's just one of those items where just making sure that they remain as accessible across clouds and declaratively the way that they are. They were really made as a declarative tool so that you could make like a mini page layout in a modal to create a record or to update a record and have only specific fields displayed, or to launch a flow from a Lightning page layout, to call a specific Lightning component from a page layout, decide whether or not you want to have a message that posts and shatter when you do your record create. And they're just foundationally a huge part of, I would say, pretty much any org that's in Lightning right now,
Right.
for
like,
how they're designed.
There's a big family of stuff that we call actions, and they're all like different, right? There's a bunch of different things that we call actions right now, and they're all like, we know that they're replacing a bunch of the underlying tech that currently supports like page layouts and stuff like that as LWC, and they have been doing that for a while. So I think as they continue to convert those and then implement them with the LMS, we'll probably see actions come back under that new format and then be supported in LWC. I think that's the hope.
They all kind of go back to just being things you call from a button, though. Like,
it's true.
Yeah. And I know we've been digging into this. We're pretty much at the hour. Any closing comments in our last few minutes here?
So I have one cool thing that just happened very, very recently. And I don't know if anyone is a big fan of A Cloud Guru, but they're pretty huge in the AWS certification space, and they're getting bigger in like the Google cert and all that stuff. They just acquired Linux Academy, which is like a massive, like, boom, like, I guess butting of two heads or whatever you want to call that. But it's this massive coming together of all these great thinkers and teachers. So that's super cool. I'm very excited about that, even though I've been a longtime supporter of A Cloud Guru, and I have an account on there with a whole bunch of cool stuff. And I just purchased a Linux Academy account, which is about double the price. So now I have two. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm scared. Somebody help me. But that's pretty cool. I'm hoping they'll go with a lower price, which would be very, very nice for me. Whatever.
Well, fingers crossed.
I don't blame you.
Fingers crossed.
Right? For sure.
That's all I got.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't really have much to take us out. I think I did want to talk about like the kind of stuff that you probably need to know, the JavaScript stuff that you need to know to be a good Salesforce developer in 2020. We can talk about that next time.
That's awesome. That's like a whole episode though. So that's the point. we can dig into some.
I keep thinking these things are an hour long, but they're not.
We try to keep them short attention spans, you know?
Yeah.
People got stuff to do.
I can maybe we can just put together some stuff for people to kind of take home. Not for now, but like next time. Because I got a ton of good free JavaScript tutorials if you all want some of those.
Nice.
That'd be cool.
Very cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, my big focuses lately have just been Salesforce Connect and a lot of identity and authentication. So lots of fun stuff going on there for me.
I'd love to hear more about that at some point.
Yeah. Working on some cool stuff with external identity and external portals and data. So lots of fun stuff happening.
Nice.
But yeah, so we'll end up talking about that eventually. We'll get there. Tons of stuff to cover, and we've got all the time in the world. So
there we go.
Don't forget to subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. And then follow us on Twitter at system.debug. You have at the infamous RJ to follow RJ. At Adam Doss, follow Adam, and at Megan SF to follow me. And may the S-Force be with you, or may the S-Force be with you to follow NA8 Nathan Pepper.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here, and we will talk to you again in 2 weeks.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.